Let's look at the options because early polling shows that Kamala Harris is actually the favourite to win the Democratic nomination if she runs in 2028. This is polling conducted by Focal Data, published in Newsweek, and it shows that Kamala Harris is the early favourite with 39% support, followed by Gavin Newsom with 21% support, and AOC, there she is, she's still got 10%. My goodness. That polling's pretty consistent with what we've been seeing in recent months. What do you make of it?
Yeah, look, there's been 4 major polls in 2026, and Kamala Harris is leading in 3 out of the 4, and the 4th, she's in the 2nd place. Oh God, the Democrats just don't learn their lessons, right? They even after, again, I said it before, I'll say it again. They have a golden opportunity in 2028, right? Things are trending toward them, yet they cannot help but score an own goal. God, Kamala Harris, this is my favorite Kamala Harris story. I don't know if you remember this, Gabreilla, but she is so cringe, right? She is somebody who can't even do something small talk, that she had to practice for a soiree with the practice attendees were people that work for her, because she had to practice on small talk. She had to practice having conversation with people in a social setting. She's such a bizarre person. Yeah, like I said, Gavin Newsom, he's creeping around there at 2nd place. I think he'd be a tough candidate to beat. And yeah, let's not forget AOC. I know she's in 3rd place with kind of a distant 10%, but let's not forget, this is where the Democratic Party is trending hard towards, right?
Yeah.
Bernie Sanders, we forget that when he ran for president, for the nomination against Joe Biden, he won the first 3 primaries, okay? He was looking like he was going to be, right? Comrade Bernie looked like he was going to win. And the only thing that saved the Democratic Party was James Clyburn, the congressman from South Carolina, decided to step in and push hard in that 4th primary in South Carolina for Joe Biden. And that's what turned the tide. Otherwise, Bernie Sanders would have been the nominee. So yeah, does AOC have a path? She most certainly does.
And I think that's certainly why she was making some noise in Munich, even though she completely denies that she would want to be president. What about Republicans, though? I mean, that was such a brilliant speech by Marco Rubio. Let's just listen to part of it.
The fundamental question we must answer at the outset is, what exactly are we defending? Because armies do not fight for abstractions. Armies fight for a people. Armies fight for a nation. Armies fight for a way of life. And that is what we are defending. A great civilization that has every reason to be proud of its history.
I think it was just absolutely outstanding. JD Vance was asked about it on Fox News today. He was also asked if he'd like to be president, which he, of course, brushed off. But he had this to say about Marco Rubio's speech.
Is it the reason why the president or Marco or me talk about borders, the reason why we talk about them spending more on their own security, the reason that we talk about them more becoming a vibrant economy again, is that we want Europe to thrive and we want Europe to succeed. The problem that we have with Europe is not that we don't like Europe, even though you hear that from the European press. It's not that we don't respect our allies. It's that they are doing a lot of things to sabotage themselves. We would like that to stop. We would like them to be an ally in the true sense of the word.
I mean, it's interesting because, of course, we'd remember last year JD Vance's speech was a bit more aggressive. He was pretty direct as he was kind of lashing Europe for its problems, whereas Marco Rubio, he certainly delivered a strong message warning against the consequences of mass migration, but it was a lot warmer. What are your thoughts around that, and also looking at 2028?
Yeah, no, it was a great speech. I mean, and as far as 2028 goes, God, I'm so sick of this. Guys, just be honest about what you want to do. We all know that AOC is running. We all know JD Vance is running. I'd rather they just be a little more honest about it, but so be it. But no, he's going to be one of the great, frankly, it's so funny seeing Rubio and Vance talking about this, because it will be probably Rubio and Vance up until the last moments of who we decide will lead the Republican Party. As far as Europe goes, yeah, the speech was amazing and on point. Because Europe is going through continental self-immolation. We're seeing it in real time. Yes, of course, the out-of-control mass immigration that they're allowing in Europe, creating all this societal and political dislocation in the continent, but it's more than that. You're talking about they're erasing their own self-identity. They're destroying. The free speech is almost non-existent right now in Europe, and also the massive economic failures over and over again. Look, of the top 50 tech companies, two of the 50 are European, Gabreilla. It is unbelievable. And the way they're combating that is not saying, hey, let's have more entrepreneurship. Let's focus more on economic freedom. Let's unleash the intellectual prowess of this continent. No, what they do is they're at war with U.S. tech companies, right? That's what they're doing through regulation and legislation and these massive fines. They have fined U.S. tech companies tens of billions of dollars. Europe, this is not going to solve your problem. You have to face up that you are destroying your own continent. And this is, again, a own goal. You're doing it to yourself. You can change it. They refuse to do it. In fact, they laughed at Rubio's speech. They laughed at it. Guys, I think rather than laughing at it, you should be taking notes.
Yeah, good point. Be interesting if you were up there, Ami. Very strong words, the way you put it, but I agree completely. Finally, I want to talk about these negotiations that have taken place between the US and Iran. Those talks have been held in Geneva. The reports coming out of Geneva is that that progress has been made, but there is still a lot to discuss. This is what the president had to say ahead of those talks.
Expecting from these Iran talks in Geneva tomorrow.
So I'll be involved in those talks indirectly, and they'll be very important, and we'll see what can happen. It's been typically, Iran's a very tough negotiator. They're good negotiators, or bad negotiators. I would say they're bad negotiators, because we could have had a deal instead of sending the B-2s in to knock out their nuclear potential, and we had to send the B-2s. I hope they're going to be more reasonable. They want to make a deal.
Have we been told that a deal is next to impossible?
No, I think they want to make a deal. I don't think they want the consequences of not making a deal. They want to make a deal.
We've also heard from President Trump just in the last few days that regime change would be the best thing to happen. So it seems as though it's a matter of when, not if, that US attacks Iran. What's your sense of where things are at?
Yeah, there's a reason why there's two carrier groups right now floating around Iran. Iran knows that President Trump's not all about talk, just like the last 20 years of other presidents said, well, we're not going to take anything off the table. Yeah, you did. You were never considering any kind of action against Iran in terms of kinetic action. But the president decided, hey, we're going to show that to be something we can use, and they did use it. And that's why Iran is back at the table. In the negotiation they're having now, look, do I think it's going to come to fruition? Probably not. But I'll tell you one thing, that they're focusing not just on their nuclear issue, right, which everybody else talked about, but focusing on things that other presidents did not, particularly Barack Obama and Joe Biden, their ballistic capability, their continuing funding of militant organizations around the world. Yeah, I've said it before a million times, it bears repeating. The Iranian regime falling will be one of the most consequential foreign policy achievements since the fall of the Soviet Union, and that's not hyperbole. That is actual fact and truth. Okay, and Obama's failure on the GCPOA, the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, which, by the way, you have to be smoking a joint, some California Kush to have signed that, because it was an awful, absolutely awful deal. Was one of the hallmarks of foreign policy failures of Barack Obama, which Donald Trump got us out of quickly. One quick story. I remember when I was there doing the negotiation of the JCPOA, first of all, the U.S. negotiators and the Iran negotiators were staying in a $1,200 a night hotel. That says a lot about our taxpayer dollars and even the Iranian taxpayer dollars. I stayed at the Marriott 100 yards away for $250 a night. But when I spoke with the U.S. negotiators, and it shows how different times have, what the changes have been since then and now, I remember talking to them over drinks and saying, well, okay, I know you're trying to negotiate, and there's a different approach to how I would deal with this issue, but we do both agree that Iran is trying to build a nuclear weapon. They laughed at me. They said, you're so naive. We're experts. Of course we don't know that. We're not certain of that. And that's what led to that disastrous agreement, the JCPOA. So yeah, I'm all for it. I love what Trump is doing, and hopefully we're going to see a new regime in Iran in the near future.
Well, we're watching it all very closely. Ami Horowitz, filmmaker, thank you so much for your time. Great to speak with you.
Always a pleasure.